Ladies, welcome to another episode of the Revitalized Womanhood podcast. I am joined today, finally, luckily, yay, by the beautiful Erin Keating of the Hotter Than Ever podcast. And I'm so excited we finally got to connect. Welcome.
Thank you, Gina. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, we were just going that, I'm just explaining to Erin the background here. I've got this mood lighting. And it's early for you, right? So for me, it's 6 p.m., which means the sun's completely already set because it's setting over here at 4:15.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It kills
I've been in
me.
hibernation mode.
It kills me. I don't do well without sunshine. That's why I moved to Southern California.
Yes. And I lived in La Jolla for a bit, so I know exactly what you mean. And the food. Okay, I got my first taste of Mexican food today.
Mexican food in London.
Right, quote unquote.
No.
I don't know what country it was a fusion of, and I don't think they meant it to be a fusion. I mean, Lebanese Mexican, Eastern.
Eastern Mexican?
It was Eastern Mexican. And it's so funny, too, because I'm not really that big of a fan. Lucha is my favorite thing on the planet. So lucha, I will go out of my way for when I'm in town. But I am not really that big. But when we travel and we're gone on these kinds of stints, I want Mexican food. And it's so bizarre. And so every time I try to find it, time before this, I found it in, where were we? In Spain or somewhere. Anyway, I can't even think. And it was, the name of this restaurant was Brooklyn. And they had pulled pork nachos. And I was like,
that sounds promising.
Right? It was not. It was an epic fail.
Yeah. Mexican food anywhere out of Mexico or Southern California or Texas, I think you're done for.
Right? All right. Exactly. Anyway, I've just given up on even trying because then I just get my heart broken. But enough about food. Welcome to the Revitalized Womanhood podcast. I am so glad we got to do this because it has been very hard for me to schedule, find good Wi-Fi, know where I'm going to be, right? But I've been wanting to do this whole, I can do it all.
Yeah, how's that going?
And I think that rolls perfectly into the questions that I'm going to pepper you with going forward. Yeah, it's not going so great. I'm not loving it.
Yeah, it's
hard.
And
I even had a good conversation with one of my coaches, Sally Holder, before I left. And I was like, what if I just put my podcast on kind of a hiatus? And she's like, I love that for you. Why would you not? And still, with permission from someone wiser in the industry and more, you know what I mean? I still just could not let it go.
Well, if you don't want to, then it's okay to not let it go.
But then we get into those not wanting to. Where does the line start to blur of not wanting to and feeling obligated to, or feeling like I'm supposed to?
If you step away, what will happen?
Right. I've got the other people in my ear saying you have to be consistent. You have to, So anyway, it's been really interesting. It's been fun. There have been struggles. I've taken away a lot of life lessons from it. So we'll go with that. Well, why don't you just introduce yourself, please, for my listeners? I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Yes. So I'm Erin Keating. I host a podcast called Hotter Than Ever. And it is about finding spark, vitality, sexuality, joy, freedom, and self-expression over 40. I started it because I needed it. I needed to hear the conversations that I have with amazing, accomplished, inspiring women. And I needed to have a place to express myself after 20 years of corporate life.
Wow.
And so that is my story, really, is that I have been in a period of reinvention over the past 2 years. Where I like to say I blew everything up, but really I blew some things up, and then also some things evolved that needed to evolve. Right. So I was a television development executive I worked for cable networks. You guys remember cable? That was a thing back in the day before streaming. I worked largely in the comedy world, but have also done kind of every genre. And my job was to help other people manifest their dreams into television shows. And I had started out as a writer performer and thought I was going to be an actor when I got out of college, tried that for a while, found myself producing everything I was involved in, and then realized that producing was a job that came naturally to me. Lesson number one in life: don't overlook the things that come naturally to you. I think we poo-poo the things that come naturally to us, and we go, well, that's just comes naturally to me. Well, it doesn't come naturally to other people. You get given your gifts, and you can take advantage of them and make something of them. Or you can, like I did for quite a number of years. I mean, I was a decently talented actor, but I am a way better producer than I was. I'm more meant to be the person who makes the whole thing happen than just play the part on stage or on screen. So I went into television because I wanted a grown-up life. I wanted a grown-up career. I wanted to eventually get married and have kids, or have kids and maybe get married. I didn't really care about the married part. I married someone because he wanted to marry me. I wanted to have kids with him. And made a really good success of myself, really found my way and made work that I was really proud of and won all the awards and did all the things. And worked myself so hard that I ended up in the hospital with COVID and got very, very sick. Now, people always ask, oh, did you have were you intubated? No, I wasn't. None of those things, but I was vaccinated and I got sick enough with COVID pneumonia to have to check myself into what felt to me like Canyon Ranch. It felt like a spa because I'm a mom of twins. I was in an unhappy marriage. I was working 1 billion hours a week. I was pretty baseline miserable, but I was having it all. Right. I had just bought a house. I had always wanted to buy a house. I was building a pool. I was living the Southern California, media industry dream, and everything looked beautiful on the outside. And I was really busy tap dancing and lying to myself about how I could maintain all of this, which really ultimately was not possible. And when I got to the hospital, which I always want to call a hotel, and had 48 hours by myself with people attending to me and no responsibilities, I was like, this shouldn't feel as good as it feels. It felt so markedly different to have the quiet and the room to think, and and the biggest bouquet of flowers was from my job. And that will tell you everything you need to know. That's where my heart was. That's where my self-esteem came from. That's where my sense of myself, my sense of my place in the world. And I left the hospital, and during the several weeks that it took for me to recover, I really started to think that I need to change everything. I just need to change everything. The marriage, I'm going to give it one more shot in couples counseling. That didn't end up working. We agreed to separate. The job, I got laid off 6 months later. Radical downsizing, radical stock drop for the company, all of the impacts. So I had sort of built this whole structure of my life around being a sort of media tech executive, with, X amount of dollars coming in and stocks and all of this stuff, and a partner to carry the burden. And, where I am today, which is I am building my own business. I am a single mom. I am dating someone. I have a very different life. I think what it took was me sort of acknowledging, there is a lot of lying going on here. I am lying to myself about how tenable this is. and also about the fact that I really didn't want it. I really didn't. I didn't want the marriage anymore. I was tired of fighting to keep it. Um, it wasn't meant to continue, and it ran its course. And I think I also had sort of grown in my self-esteem and what I thought I deserved in life. And, while I thought that my work was the source of my self-esteem, actually my self-esteem told me, you can't work like this anymore.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
The value that you are putting on your work as your self-worth, your
Right.
value
Right.
was the thing that was killing you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so I just did a tremendous amount of soul searching and really decided that I needed to live the life that I wanted to live. Oh, also in the middle of all this, I turned 50. And you can't underestimate the power of that number. That number is profound. That number is like a marker of like, this is the first half. It is now over. You are no longer young. You do not have every second of the future. You do not have every possibility in the world in front of you.
It starts flying by so fast. It gets faster and faster. Like light speed all of a sudden. Like, what?
Yeah.
It's like that movie of Click.
Yeah.
Right? And everything's just whooshing by.
Whoosh. Exactly. And so, if not now, when? That was really the question. When are you going to bet on yourself? When are you going to take that shot? When are you going to use your voice? I was so skilled at cultivating other people's voices professionally.
And weren't you telling yourself that you were doing it though? Like if
I
you
was doing
back,
it, sure.
Right? That's what I mean. You're telling yourself, oh, but I am doing what I need to be doing. I am doing it well. I'm doing it right. You're giving yourself, you've got this little angel and devil on your shoulders, and they're telling you all the things that make it appropriate for you to continue to live in a certain way.
Well, and appropriate is a really interesting word too, because I think as a young person, I was not particularly conventional. I married someone conventional, and I let myself have an extremely conventional life, because once you have kids and you need to make money, and my ex is, great at getting jobs and not as great at keeping them. And so, I had to be the foundation. I had to be the everything. And I really took on that role wholeheartedly, because I could, because I was capable, because I'm very talented and very smart, very good at what I do. But I was not paying attention to the cost. And the cost ultimately became too high to pay. The cost of the marriage became too high. The cost of the career became too high. And I just thought, I need to figure out something else. So I went on a retreat in Italy. It was like full on eat, pray, love. And I sort of started to set some new goals for myself. I also started sleeping around, and finding my sexuality again, because I had not had any intimacy in my marriage for a decade. So super out of touch with myself, and had so much longing for connection and to be in my body and to feel pleasure. And I had all that experience that I wanted to make up for, and I did. And I can go into detail or not go into detail on that, but that was a meaningful part of my evolution. And I sort of started to hatch a plan when I was in Italy, that like I would start a podcast, I would start a media business, that that this idea of what I was craving was probably what other people were craving too. Authentic conversations, laughs, no BS, someone to give you permission to make change in your life, to inspire you to live your dream and not somebody else's. And to be okay with whatever you want, whatever it is, regardless of how it sits with other people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a big factor in that.
Yeah. So that's what I did. I came back, I started the podcast. I knew I could make a beautiful media product because I've been doing that my whole career. And I've gotten amazing response from it. I'm growing my audience, and I have a million ideas of what to do with this brand and what to do with the sort of ethos of Hotter Than Ever. It can be a stand-up tour, all women comics over 40.
Yes.
There could be products. There's a short film series in my head. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Some of it's media, some of it's products, some of it's live event experiences. But the foundational thing for me was like, get your voice out there. Start to tell the truth publicly.
And we know the power of using our voice and this platform using our voices to empower and uplift women.
Yep.
So share how Hotter Than Ever is breaking the barriers and redefining womanhood for you and your listeners. How are you trying to push through whatever that invisible element is that we somehow have not been able to push through up until this point?
I think that we all grow up with a certain mold in our heads that we're trying to pour ourselves into, right? I didn't grow up with a vision of marriage. My parents literally never said to me, when you get married, when you meet your husband, when literally they were so demoralized by their own failures in relationships and their own divorces that they never felt like they could offer me any advice. So I didn't grow up with a vision of like, this is what my married life will be like. But
right.
eventually,
and you grew up in New York, right?
I grew up in Baltimore, actually.
Oh, in Baltimore.
And I moved to New York in my 20s. Yeah.
So, and much different than what I was shown. I mean,
right.
Stay-at-home mom, working dad, 8 kids in my family.
Yeah, incredible.
And same with her mother, same thing. Farmer's wife, raising 6 kids, working on the farm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was modeled and modeled and modeled.
Yeah. And my mom was a single mom. My parents divorced when I was 2. And I watched my parents date and look for love and fulfillment and career fulfillment. And, they're such boomers, right? Like they were just constantly trying to find themselves. And I was kind of along for the ride and, they did their best, but I did a lot of independent self-parenting. I want to write a book
I'm going to hear some independent parenting.
Yeah. Exactly. You're doing it unconventionally now.
I feel like I'm going to have to hear from my children's therapists and those kinds of things on some of the things we've done to them, because same thing where we broke them out of these molds of what I don't even know that they would know what the mold looks like, because they were so young when we started doing this kind of stuff. So I don't even know that they would look other than grandma and grandpa, mom and dad, aunts and uncles, that kind of thing. But yeah, that was the whole big picture, was we need to go travel. We need to show them the world, because the world that we live in Utah, is so small, and everyone thinks that is it.
Right.
You have the few people that are willing to push outside of it, that invisible barrier, and push against this is what you're supposed to do, and this is what you should do, and whatever. And it makes me sound like I'm anti-Utah. I'm really not. I love Utah. Absolutely love it. But
one of the most beautiful places I've ever been.
Oh, it's absolutely amazing.
So beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And I love the people. I do. I love the people. However, that's the reason there's so many funny reels on Instagram about making fun of Utah women, because it is so true.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so easy. It is like an actual perfectly molded niche that we can all make fun of because it's true.
Yeah,
so
that's amazing.
To say that we're living in a little bubble is not false. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. They might be mad at me for saying it and pointing it out because it's like a mirror, but so that was my biggest thing with my kids, is I needed them out of that. I needed them to see more.
Yeah. And I was trying to stay married because my parents couldn't. I lasted 17 years. My parents lasted 10. I somehow was in an invisible competition with them in my head. Like, I'm going to be able to do this. You couldn't do this, but I'm going to be able to do this. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
I was
and
actually going to ask you, say 20 years ago, what was if you can try to get rid of all the what you know nows, put yourself back 20 years ago, what was your definition of success? What did that look like?
I wanted children. I wanted 2 children. I wanted a career with a capital C, where I, was a grown-up person and went to an office and did creative work for a living, made things. Making cool things with cool people has always been my MO. I love a project. I love a beginning, middle, and end. So that was really it. It was like, I want an adult life where I can afford to do adult things, and I don't want to be a starving artist, and I want to have a family.
And that is a big part of it, is people act like money won't buy you happiness. Well, no, I know it won't buy you happiness, but it will buy you freedom. It will buy you the ability to stay home with your kids if that's what you want to do. It will buy you the ability to travel with your kids if that's what you want to do. You know what I mean? But you can't do those things if you don't have the money.
No, I wanted to earn a proper living. I wanted to earn a proper living. And I lived in New York City, and now I live in Los Angeles. Like, I've lived in San Francisco. I do not choose cost-effective places to live. I choose interesting places to live where there are cool things to do with cool people. Like that, where there are creative opportunities and professional opportunities for a creative career. And I've been very career-driven my whole life. Yeah.
So versus that definition of success and ticking off those boxes, what is your definition now of success? And what I mean, I know I can see it through your art here, and I can hear it in your episodes you have, but I want to hear you talk about that. Defining success
different.
now.
It's different. I still care very much about career. I still care very much about the public part of myself. The work that I put out into the world, the media, the storytelling, the conversations. What I ask of myself is very different. I'm still a buttoned up person. I'm still super polished and professional. That is who I am. But I don't compartmentalize in the way that I used to. There were a lot of people who knew me in my professional life who did not know me. There were people who I was very close to who did not know how miserable I was at home, and how hard things were for me, because I didn't share that part of myself. I thought the cost would be too high of being that vulnerable, and that it would impact the one thing that I felt like I was doing right in my life, which was my professional life. Now I'm very, very committed to blurring those lines. I'm committed to vulnerability, to authenticity. And saying what needs to be said that nobody else is saying. I mean, this is why I worked in comedy for a very long time. My true love is comedy. And the reason is because comedians say the things we're thinking, but are too scared to say. And
there's truth underneath it.
I love the truth telling. I love the fearless truth telling. It comes at a cost. That's not a great life, being a comic. That's a really, really hard life, even if you're extremely successful. But in my own way, that is part of what I'm taking on in this chapter of my life. I just want to be a straight shooter. I want to take really excellent care of myself and show that is possible for the women in my orbit and also for my children. I want to have good boundaries. I don't want to, I found myself in a lot of instances not having my own back, like doing things for other people that I knew even in the moment were hurting me. But because I prized harmony and getting along and whatever, I would take on that extra work. I would take on that, visit to a relative that I didn't want to see. Like, I would do all of those things because those are the things you're supposed to do. And I'm not interested in doing that so much anymore. That hurts too much. And I have to have my own back. better than anybody else does because I don't have a partner. I have a great boyfriend. He's awesome. He's really fun. We have a great time together. He's not the father of my children, and he never will be. Like, I have to live my own adult life on my own. And then he's like, awesome bonus. Is that what I am going to have forever? I have no idea. But that's what it is for today.
Well, if you're not willing to cheer for yourself, who is? Yeah. I mean, you have to be the first person. You have to be your very first, the word just left me. But if you're not going to cheer for yourself, why would anybody else?
Well, but it's embarrassing, right? It's embarrassing to be like, hi, I am legitimate and I have something to say, and I may even be important in the world. Like, do we say that as women? But are we raised to be that way as women?
No.
Like I very easily hid behind someone else professionally too. I was always somebody's right hand. I was always the power behind the throne. I could make other people look really good. I could, do all the things for them. And then I realized I need to step out. I need to step out front. Whatever that risk is, it is worth whatever it takes because I can't hide anymore. I can't hide.
Right. You got to write your own chapters. You got to be the heroine of your own story.
Yep.
Yeah. And how do you want it to read?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She had a lot of fun. She had a lot of fun in the back half. That's what I wanted to read.
In the back half. Don't name any book the back half.
I'm not calling it the back half, but it makes me laugh. The second spring, I heard someone else say. Of course, I can't help but make fun of that. But
second spring.
Yeah. But so look, it is the back half.
It is. You said you're 50. It is the back half. Mm-hmm. What is it? The back nine? What do they call that in golf too? Right. What is it? You're like on the, No, I get that. I totally get that. I'm only 41 and I feel it. I totally feel it.
Oh, I was on this retreat in Italy and I went with this incredible woman named Sherry Salata, who was an EP for Oprah for a long time. And she now has her own incredible self-help work that she does with people. And she said something to me on that retreat. She said it to all of us. She said it once. I have heard it every day of my life since then. But basically she said, how much time do you think you have left? How much time do you think you have left? Well, I'm 52. So I don't know. If my mom's 80, my aunt was 93. We have a longevity thing on my mom's side of the family. But like, let's say 80. Let's say 30 years. Like, okay. All right. I'm going to do something totally different with those 30 years than I did with the last 30.
Well, let's not get too morbid, but that's not even thinking about the what ifs. That's not even thinking about, oh, I have the big C word. What? Or, oh, a car accident just happened.
100%.
Like, and boom, you're gone. Like,
that's best case scenario.
I just did an episode on, I created a mortality. I call it a legacy binder, but I created a death book for my community and I'll probably sell it online. But I mean, because it's morbid and people don't want to think about it. But guess what? You need to think about it. You have to think about these things. And if you're living your life in a way that it's like, my husband's account on Instagram is actually called One Life So Live, because that is how he lives his life. That's how he wants to be reminded every day to live his life. One life so live. So because you never know, you might not wake up tomorrow.
That's right.
We'll bring it back up from this, but
I don't actually find this to be a morbid conversation.
Because
what it is that it's real.
Me.
It's real, and I find inspiration in the fact that I have today. I have today.
Yes.
What am I going to do with today? What am I going to do that is meaningful? That is what I want. That is who I want to be in the world. What am I doing with that one self, that one life, that one voice today?
And maybe that's the people that aren't comfortable with thinking about these things because they kind of know in the back of their head that they're not doing the things that they should be doing as far as embracing this life, right? They're maybe in the hamster wheel. They're caught in this, and it'll happen when, and I'll do it when I have time or when I get enough money or whatever. The whole thought of retiring like our parents did and our grandparents did, like working their entire life to get to retirement to possibly then maybe be able to go to Italy, right? My husband's grandpa, that was the whole thing, was he worked his entire life, saved all of this money. And then by the time we were dragging them along to come on trips with us, their bodies wouldn't work well, right? They were tired. They didn't enjoy it like we do.
Right.
Because why would they? They're tired and they're old. Their poor bodies didn't want to do what we were doing. So the whole concept of that just sickens me. It sickens me. And then they have how many good years left? Maybe not many, because you end up with something like dementia or something. And then it's like,
game over.
Game over. Lights go out. Whether you're here or not, the lights go out.
Totally. And I have a great example in my mom of someone who really, really lives with tremendous passion, enthusiasm. And she's 80. She's very healthy. She takes amazing care of herself. She has a great community that she's been a part of for her whole life. She's very active in the arts in Baltimore. Like, she is a real inspiration to me. And my life doesn't look anything like her life. So I have to build all the things that she kind of has built in from living in a place where she grew up, and where her sisters were, and where her nieces, everybody is there. I didn't choose that. I chose, a more adventurous path. But I do find myself being like, okay, well, how am I going to build, a thing that will sustain me into my older years, without being isolated, which I envy you of having a large family and, whatever you feel about it on a day-to-day basis, you have that support system. And that's amazing. I don't have that, and so I'm like inventing everything as I go.
Yeah. You got to touch the stove a lot. I'm the middle child, and I had to touch the stove. I'm still touching the stove all the time. I was never conformed to what my family was doing, what they believed in, it was just so weird. It was like in me already to just revolt against everything that they were telling me to do, because I wanted to touch the stove. And it's so infuriating because now I have a child like that as well. So I see everything in me, and I'm just like, Mom, I'm so sorry. And she's like, yep, I know. And I'm just like, but it's what we want to do. It makes it more exciting for us, right?
Yeah.
It's a way of figuring out how to see that it's going to suck, but I trust myself to be able to come out of this. Like whatever, which way it's going to go, I may not know. I might not know which way this is going to come out of this, but some people do know. They like the comfort of knowing point A gets me to point B. And people like you and I, we start at point A and we could end up at point Q.
Right.
Like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Right. I resisted this. I resisted this for 20 years. I like the direct deposit. I really like the direct deposit. I really like the predictability of a career with a capital C and a role and a title and a team and all those things. I just want to build that for myself. I want all those things, but I want to be in charge of it. And I want, and I want to delegate the things that are not the things that I'm great at, to people who are great at those things. And then I want to build something with awesome people.
So how do we cultivate and maintain that self-assured mindset in a society that often puts pressure on women to conform, right? To sometimes unrealistic standards. Nowadays, they are unrealistic. The fact that so many women, it's a big trend now to be homesteaders and housewives, which I love. I think that's amazing. Good for you. But the legitimacy of that, to have one income families, is, I think, very unrealistic for most people. So for a lot of people that want that, seeing these people doing it, that's painful because they see their bills and their bills don't make sense with what they're bringing home or whatever, right? So how do we continue to cultivate this mindset of empowerment to choose your way, choose your right?
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to be realistic, right? I think people who are building something, I heard Gary Vee say, the reason entrepreneurs fail is because they don't give themselves enough time. And so, you can build a thing. It's just probably going to take a couple years longer than you think. Don't give up.
Right.
They say in 12 steps.
Because we expect it's going to happen so quick. Oh, yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
Right. That's what they say in 12 steps. They say, don't leave 5 minutes before the miracle happens. It's like you have to have such conviction about the thing it is that you're trying to make happen, or the change that you're trying to manifest, or the thing you're trying to grow, that that you're willing to do what it takes to keep at it. And I'm a development person, meaning I like to make a thing and put it out into the world and move on to the next thing. That's not what I'm doing today. What I'm doing today is I'm making a thing, and then I'm making a thing again. And then I'm making it again next week. And then so are you, right? Like we're just continuing to evolve in the same lane. And for me, I want to build that thing so that it becomes a foundation for a whole bunch of other things. But it isn't a short-term thing, and it takes a level of resilience. For me, I take on consulting work on the side, and I'm mad about it. I'm mad about it, but there are things that I can do that people need my skills. And so, great. I will continue to pursue those things until I no longer have to pursue those things. But for me, the win is I'm in charge of my time. For me, the win is, that my schedule and where I am when I'm doing the work I'm doing is up to me. And that is really meaningful as a mom who was never around when her kids were little, because I was chasing this thing. And now I'm around. I don't always love it, but now I'm around.
Sometimes it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I have twin 12-year-olds.
Oh my gosh.
I have a boy and a girl, and they are just going
it's about
through
to
it.
Get really
7th grade, people. Do you remember it? It wasn't pretty. It's not pretty. Yeah.
It's about to get real frisky. I have a 12-year-old boy. I might as well have a 12-year-old girl. I swear. It's all the same right now.
So many feelings.
So many feelings. Oh, goodness. And when you're locked together, like we're together 24 hours a day, it's a lot of feelings. And they just ping pong off each of us.
Oof.
Okay, I want to dive into something that this is not on any of my questions, but you brought it up, and so it triggered something, and I think you and I could have a really good conversation about this. And no, I don't know that anyone's going to know where I stand on this point, but do you mind me asking, with your marriage, do you feel like you being the breadwinner took a toll on the intimacy, the vulnerability, do you feel like that played a part in the end of it, the dissolving of it?
So to be accurate, when we first met, I was not making very much money and he was making plenty of money. I continued to rise in my career and the way that his industry evolved. The comp was not what it was when I met him. Like, there were huge bonuses and then there weren't huge bonuses. And as my salary went up, his stayed flat. He always made money. But I happened to get into a position where I was making a lot more than he was in the last job that I had. And it did not go well for us. it did not go well for us. I don't think, and this, I'm reluctant to say, like, make proclamations about gender and
Right.
all of this, but what I have found in relationship is that earning power and money are very, very deeply, soulfully, fundamentally important to men.
Yeah.
I think they get their identity from their jobs and where they build, where they stand in the world. And that is what they're told to do from the moment that they are conscious, right?
Provide, protect,
provide.
preside. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Provide, be the foundation, I did not grow up necessarily in that dynamic. But the men that I've been with, it has been really important to them. My current boyfriend is very self-made and very ambitious, and I love that about him. And I see what that does for him, and having really made himself out of nothing, gives him a really incredible sense of pride and agency. When I was making substantially more money than my ex, he wanted it. And I wanted to save it. And so there was this battle all the time over what is ours, what is the future, what is the present, what is now, what is money for. And for me, money is for safety, money is for security, money is to fulfill your goals, money is, sometimes for relief in the moment and fancy dinners and nice clothes and whatever. Sure, if you can afford all of that stuff and build the future, amazing. Like, we could for a while. I had 2 years where I was genuinely rich on my own terms. And all the years before I wasn't, and now I'm not. Don't get divorced, ladies in California, if you're doing well. But I think it really sucks for men when their partners are making more than they are. I think it's really emasculating. Whether we want it to or not, whether we see it that way or not, they see it that way.
I think I see it that way. I mean, that's my stand on it. I feel like that's ingrained in them. Like you said, I think absolutely it's ingrained in them. And that's what they are taught from being young, and that this is what their job is to do. And I think it's naturally in them to do that. But the reason I brought that up is we've had a lot of talk going around in my community, and it's funny too because it was some members in my community. This conversation came up, but then also just some random friends of mine. This came up as well, and the struggle between women starting to feel like they're not appreciated for everything they're doing because they're not the breadwinners or because they're not bringing home the money. And I think, I don't know, maybe it has something to do with, I mean, obviously we're not talking about abusive, controlling, narcissistic. I mean, we're not talking about these kind of marriages. We're talking about on the surface, good, healthy marriages, right? But I think I'm wondering, is it something to do with the fact that now there's so much more of a imbalance in everything's more expensive, right? Holy cow,
Yes.
It's so much more expensive to live. Oh my gosh. It's like you can't even function the way that you were used to functioning. And so now these women feel like, okay, the husbands feel the pressure, they're feeling stress because they're not able to provide to a level that they feel like. And so the women feel like they're not, that their husbands are stressed and mad at them. And so they're not feeling that they're being valued for what they're doing. Oh my gosh, it's just a whole conversation.
I think it's really hard. I think money stuff is really hard. I think the economy conspires to keep us all on a treadmill. And, I have a lot of thoughts about how much by design that is. I do believe it's by design. because a lot of people, a handful of people profit off the rest of us, constantly striving to make ends meet. And I think what happens in relationship and what happened to me is that I took on so much responsibility for running the household, for maintaining, for handling the kids stuff, for having the career, for whatever. And I was the boss in every area of my life. And my husband wanted that role. But in reality, I was doing all the stuff. And he let himself let me do that.
Right.
Instead of insisting, you know what, this is actually on me and I need to do X, Y, Z, and I'm going to stand up and do these things. For 1,000, he would have wanted to. He would have wanted to. He will probably tell you that's what he was trying to do. I do not fault him. He has some profound challenges that he deals with in his life. I just was tired of compensating for them. I took it on for a long time, and it was too much for me. And what I find in my current relationship, which it's the first relationship I've ever been with a guy who is politically conservative, a former Marine, all these things that I grew up liberal coastal media elite. I like how he comes at manhood. I really like it. And it allows me to be soft. Whereas I never felt... It
allows your femininity to come through.
Yeah.
So that's really hard to admit
that. It's really hard to admit that. But I think if
that's
you are...
That's kind of where... I was tiptoeing with that with your husband. If you take on all of these things, you become this dominant role, then the scale, it has to tip.
Yeah, totally. And and our intimacy really suffered. Our intimacy suffered for a lot of reasons, but that really was the nail in the coffin, I think.
And I think these women are starting to overcompensate with trying to do more and trying to be this and trying to prove their worth. This gets into the whole, we will go into the whole social media comparison trap. Now they see everybody doing everything. And if I don't bake the cake the right way, like this lady in Australia is baking it, I'm not right. I have a joke that my mom in her day.
You can be a mom who doesn't bake a cake ever.
Oh, right. Amen.
Not going to bake a cake.
It's fine. I'm okay with it. My funny thing is my mom, she had to compete with Karen down the street, what casserole Karen down the street was making. And Karen came out. But we have to deal with billions of women making this cake. And it has to look this certain way. So I think the pressure is becoming so overwhelming for women to not only be the perfect mother, not only be the perfect wife, not only have the perfect house and the perfect kids and they're well behaved and my car's always clean and my hair's always done and I start a business and now I do this and we want it all, right? We want to prove that we can be the ones that have it all.
Or we just want it all.
Where was I going with that?
Maybe it's not even that we're trying to prove anything. It's want all the things. Here's what I have concluded,
proving it is just in our heads.
Yes. Also, social media is poisonous, toxic awfulness.
Oh, if you don't have boundaries for it, absolutely.
So, follow things that are empowering, things that light you up, that lift you up, and get rid of everybody else. Honestly, there's some people who I'm just why are you in my feed? Get away from me. I don't need to hear your message.
Isn't it fun when you finally feel empowered to do that? You finally feel like you're not obligated because women, you don't even know this person in your phone. You don't even know this person. Even if you do know this person, you are not obligated to stay in their realm.
I learned from my daughter
Get rid of it.
Who periodically just deletes TikTok off her phone. She'll just be like, you know what?
Girl.
I can't do it right now. It's not making me feel good. I'm going to stop. And then, so
Good
like
for her.
the other day, for like a week, I got rid of Instagram. I was like, oh, this is very nice. I like this. This was taking up too much time. This is a time suck. This is not productive. I want to be productive.
Yeah.
Like, no. Okay, I get it. I get what's going on out there. I'm going to take a little break. Okay, now I'm back. But yeah, I feel like you can have it all. You just can't have it all at the same time. You know, that's the conclusion that I've drawn, is this myth of balance. Balance. I just interviewed a woman named Catherine Morgan Schaffler who wrote a book about perfectionism, which is extraordinary. And she defines all these different types of perfectionism and talks about how it's a superpower, because perfectionists see the gulf between how things are and how things could be, and they take action to get us closer to our ideals in the world. And we get a bad rap because there's no such thing as a male perfectionist. Like, men who are perfectionistic are ambitious. Women, you know, we're told, well, you just need more balance. You're out of whack, which basically means take on more tasks of a wider variety of types. I want to obsess over a thing. I want to do something to an exacting degree of perfection, or in my mind, like what the success marker is. That may mean that some stuff's going to fall apart on the other side, like in some other vertical in my life. Fine. I'll go deal with that later. But trying to do it all every day in perfect balance, in equal proportion, and pleasing everybody, it's not possible. It's okay to obsess about something and be focused on one thing for a while. And then, like, you know, then your kids are going to need some new clothes because you weren't paying attention to that for a while. You know?
And yeah, exactly. That was your spinning plate. Your spinning plate slowed down. That reminds me of my mom. She had these 8 kids and was home, and she'd get into a sewing project. Like, she sewed all of my sister's wedding gowns, all of our dance dresses.
Amazing.
I mean, whatever. But she would get into sewing, and the rest of the house would just be a disaster. And we'd all just be like lost boys running wild, you know, and she would just focus, and she would do it so well. And so honestly, for me, that's probably contributed to some serious blueprinting in me, but I try to keep every ball, or, you know, in the air now, because I saw what it looked like for her to do that, but she was happy doing that.
And she did
was in
something extraordinarily well. And
yes, and beautiful, and she created
meaningful for us, you know?
Yep.
It's okay.
Oh my heck. I could go on and on about the perfection. My other account, my travel account, is called Pure Imperfection, because it's like my favorite thing on the planet to embrace all the imperfections and just cheer the heck out of them, you know? Like, that's me. So I'm more of instead of doing one thing just really well, I'm going to do a whole bunch of things pretty good. But I have so much confidence behind that they're only just pretty good, and I'm okay with that it's great.
Yeah.
That's my relationship with perfectionism.
I mean, that's amazing if you can give yourself that permission, you know? For me, like, if my house isn't basically in really good shape, I'm stressed. If it's messy, I'm stressed. I don't like that. I got to fix it before I can do other stuff. And that's okay. That's just how I am. You know, it's not OCD
it screams
or
at
anything. You know, it's not pathological. It's just my preference and my sense of order. Order gives me calm, and then I can move on with things.
Actually, I have a friend. Her name's Trina Glines. She does a course called Taming Jane, like Tarzan and Jane. Taming Jane Academy, and she teaches the language of men so that we can understand men. And she actually talks about that. She talks about how women have this like ability to just, she calls it's screaming at you. If the pillow's not right on the couch, it screams at you. So you cannot hear anything else going on around you. Your husband could be talking to you, your kids could be talking to you, and while that pillow sits askew, You cannot hear anything but that
Yep.
pillow. But men, they have nothing like that. They have nothing. Theirs is food, water, sex, right? They are primal instinct people. And so when they see the garbage can overflowing, to them, they don't instinctively think, oh, the garbage needs to go out. That's not in their DNA. It's not in their nature. They can be asked to do it and they're fine to do it, but they don't instinctively, like, whereas us, if the garbage is full, it's like, if that garbage doesn't go out, I'm not going to be able to focus on anything else until it happens. Yeah. Right? We like come to a halt.
Yeah. The boyfriend is very fastidious, which is interesting.
Because he's
he's a bachelor. Like he really lives alone.
Yeah.
Like by design. Like he wants everything just so. And that's very appealing to me. One of the first times we got together, he folded my jeans. And I was like, who are you? Who?
I've never been so turned on.
I was like, I don't know if that's a move you've got or like that's
my move.
Jesus Christ.
What's your big move?
Like, I cannot handle this. This is the best thing that ever happened to me.
Wait till he gets out the Dyson. He starts vacuuming.
I've seen it. I've seen it. It's hot.
Now all bets are off. Oh my heck. Erin, so how do we continue? I mean, I might answer my own question, but I want to hear what you have to say. How do we continue to give these women permission to dream? And I hate saying dream bigger, because the life they have, they love. Like, imagine whatever. So in my head, I'm thinking of this beautiful, cute little housewife, and she loves being a housewife, and she loves her kids, and she loves baking, and she loves her husband, whatever. But you can still dream bigger. You can still want more. You can still have your own dreams. So, and it's interesting because one of my first things I do when they come into my membership is they do 4 weeks to the fresh start. And the very first thing says, you have to have a vision. Yeah. So you, in 3 years, what does that look like? If it's a better communication with your husband, if it's more intimacy with your husband, if it's better communication with your kids, if it's whatever, you have to define what this is, right? How do we keep motivating them to do it? Get in the driver's seat. Look, like, really stop and just look and say, is this good enough? Be okay with it maybe is not. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. It's not shameful to say my life is not good enough when you got a great life.
Yeah. I think we all have these little pinchy places in our lives, right? We all have these little things that when we have to do them, we feel like, I don't like this. I don't like how this makes me feel. Some dynamic that you're in, some role that you play in your life. I don't like that. I think paying attention to those places, that's probably where you're telling lies to make things okay. I also think paying attention to your body and what your body's telling you, we can be very disassociated. I know I was very disassociated. I often felt like I was just ahead. And my body was just kind of there to get me around. Now that those things are a little bit more integrated, I exercise more. I have an intimate life. I'm more sort of, I'm more in myself. My body gives me all kinds of information about how a situation feels to me. And whereas in the past, I was really good at overriding that. And I was really good at like tamping that down and rejecting that information my body was trying to give me. I think those are just places to sort of look at and go, change might need to happen in this spot. And I think if you start to identify where the change needs to happen, then you can start to cook the vision that can replace the yucky thing with a thing that feels a million times better. You know, I think I think we have to work hard on defining our dreams and getting really specific. I'm obsessed with vision boards. it's so old school self-help, but like there is nothing like, a collage as a project. It sounds so hokey jokey, but I think in the same way that I'm obsessed with journaling and writing and getting things out of myself onto a page so that I can look at it and externalize it. I think when you are flipping through a stack of magazines and you're going, I'm only looking for what resonates. Oh, a word, an image. Right. I think there's ways to get to your vision, creative visualization, meditation, those types of things can be really, really helpful, but you got to go within. You're not going to find the vision.
Or walk around your house and wait for the things to pinch you.
Totally.
What screams at you.
Totally.
But be aware of it. Like, be intentional about slowing down enough that you feel the pinch. Yeah. Or you recognize it as, mine is usually like anxiety, like, oh, I need to reorganize that. That needs to be a project, because it is. It's a pinch. Mine's like a pressure. It's an anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm a big believer in vision. The bosses that I've had in my professional life who held a vision of what we were doing that was bigger than us. That's part of why I love the notion of Hotter Than Ever, that like we can all feel more vital and self-expressed and alive and joyful and have more fun. Now that we're not so self-conscious, now that we care less what people think about us, now that we are who we are, and it's probably not going to change too much. Like now we got to figure out how to really live into all of that potential.
Well, you just brought me around perfectly. So, wrapping it up, what is next for Hotter Than Ever then? What is on that beautiful vision board? You've said so many things, but what can we be expecting?
Yes. Well, the incremental growth on the podcast side is that I'm going to start doing advice episodes. So I do interviews.
Like a call-in or just a write-in?
Write-in. I am deeply unqualified. Cool. I am deeply unqualified to give advice. I am funny.
Hey, as long as you start every episode with that, it's fine.
I care. I'm compassionate. I want to hear people's stories. I think I can be helpful. At the very least, it will be fun to listen to. But that's the sort of incremental growth for the beginning for Q1 of next year. Is I'm gonna be making more podcasts.
That's cool. Yeah. I love that, and I love that for you. I don't even know you that well, and I love that for you. That's going to be so fun to listen to. I can't wait. Thank you so much for being here with me and making this happen. I appreciate your time, and I can't wait to follow along and see where you go.
Thanks so much, Gina. Enjoy London.